Welcome back. You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with the Daily Telegraph's associate political editor, Tony Diver, and the Guardian's deputy political editor, Jessica Elgot. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Well, the continuing fallout from and promised investigation of the accidental release of asylum seeker and convicted sex offender Hadish Kabatu is top story in Jessica's paper, The Guardian, which carries a warning from the Chief Inspector of Prisons for ministers not to scapegoat the prison staff behind the release. The Times says the use of hotels to house asylum seekers is to end within a year, with military barracks to be used instead. The Financial Times says Chancellor Rachel Reeves-Summs, ahead of the budget, could be spoiled by a worse-than-expected decline in productivity, likely to be forecast by the Office of Budget Responsibility. Indeed, the Eye says she's already signalling that she'll probably have to raise taxes and cut spending. And the Mail says fears of a new mansion tax in the budget has experts warning that it could cause havoc in the housing market. A cyclist whose face was disfigured by a drunk driver and then rebuilt by the NHS using a 3D printer is pictured in the lead story of tomorrow's Metro. While Tony's paper, The Telegraph, reports that the NHS is to offer a new same-day test for prostate cancer, which would be game-changing in terms of speed of diagnosis and ending the long wait for results. The Sun says that if Prince Andrew moves out of Royal Lodge, then his new home, Frogmore Cottage, may undergo another makeover, just 6 years after Harry and Meghan spent almost £2.5 million on it. And the Star leads with the news that only one Premier League football match may take place this Boxing Day instead of a much fuller card. So welcome to Tony and Jessica to take us through all of those stories. We're going to start with your paper, Jessica, The Guardian. A minister's warning not to scapegoat prison staff over the accidental release of Hadish Kabatu from Chelmsford Prison.
Yeah, there was certainly a lot of blame game going on today, first in the House of Commons, where David Lammy faced off against Robert Jenrick, quite furious David Lammy, actually, furious about the incident, but also furious at Robert Jenrick for trying to sort of make a political capital out of it. And here you've got the prison union saying, actually, it shouldn't be staff who are blamed for it. It says one of the members has been suspended, a junior member of staff has been suspended, but in fact, there were more senior members of staff who were also responsible, so it shouldn't be blamed on one individual. I mean, you'd think there would start to be questions about the governor of Chelmsford. If you've got such a high-profile prisoner coming in, you would think that that would be something that should be on your staff's radar. And it is, in fact, I mean, I'm sure most people would think it is gobsmacking that this was allowed to happen. It's difficult to say that it's directly the government's fault, but of course we know that prisons have been significantly underfunded for many years.
The Chief Inspector of Prisons, Charlie Taylor, saying that it would be very easy to throw an individual at Chelmsford under the bus for this when it was a systemic problem.
Well, yeah, I mean, that does seem to be exactly what the government's done, is to throw an individual under the bus here. But I think what the point that Charlie Taylor makes is completely fair, which is that, and all prison governors make this point, these are institutions that have been underfunded over a long period of time. They struggle to manage their day-to-day operations, and something like this was bound to slip through the cracks. And as David Lammy pointed out in the chamber today, other cases did slip through the cracks under the Tories and the previous government. You do have to feel a bit sorry for the government here, actually. I think that something like this has happened and they are facing this level of political blowback for something that is ultimately not the minister's fault. But I think it's interesting that you've got the unions here coming out and saying individual members of staff perhaps not totally to blame.
I mean, obviously, David Lammy isn't pointing to individuals, but he is saying that it's down to human error, which is correct.
Yeah, I mean, but what the union is saying, Mark Fairhurst, who's quoted here in the Guardian piece, is saying that in fact there's a suspended manager who's responsible for going through the paperwork of the make sure the right prisoners are released, but he was checking the paperwork. That paperwork had apparently already been done by other senior members of staff. So it looks like there's problems with the system. not just one person making a mistake. But there's going to be an inquiry, a quick inquiry by the former Met Police Deputy Commissioner Damien Owens, who will look at it and see why he was, freed unexpectedly that Friday morning. Unexpected even to him. I mean, he said there's reports that he kept trying to go back in.
He was there for reportedly 90 minutes, asking
what was going on
to get back in and asking to have it explained to him why he wasn't being deported.
Yeah, and so it's extraordinary, really, that no one even during that period of time realised that a mistake had been made, and especially when it's someone who had such a spotlight on them, such massive attention over them, sparked disorder over the course of the summer. That's
why it's been so embarrassing. I mean, do both of you feel that the governor should resign at this point?
I mean, I don't know whether it's for me to make that call, and I don't know what the sort of protocols are for governors when you get a high-profile prisoner like this. But it does seem extraordinary that it wouldn't be particularly careful handling of a case like this.
Tony?
It seems that governors in these individual situations don't actually have that amount of personal responsibility, and that's why the government has said that governors should have to sign off this long list of checks before any individual prisoner is released. So I think in future cases you probably can say there's more accountability on the governors. It's not that surprising the governors are not too happy about the government making that decision.
No, indeed. To the FT, let's talk the budget. It's looming, 26th of November. We're almost there. We've had endless commentary about it, haven't we? Reeve's budget sums face 20 billion blow from steeper productivity downgrade. This is the OBR reduction is bigger than expected.
Yeah, this is the big bugbear that's going on in government at the moment, and should have been expected, maybe even have expected at the last budget. But the OBR is finally doing this really big productivity downgrade, which is blowing another. The FT reports there'll be a 20 billion, the sort of upper end of expectations for this productivity downgrade. A bigger hole in Rachel Reeves's budget, making her task even more difficult if she's not going to break those manifesto tax rules on not raising income tax, VAT or national insurance. More and more rumours now that she may indeed break that pledge in order to not go fill the black hole, but also potentially go beyond it. So to give herself what's called headroom, that sort of fiscal space, so that she doesn't have to keep coming back on this roller coaster, which has happened to her throughout the whole 18 months that Labour's been in power. That she's constantly having to fill a black hole in because she's leaving herself any tiny margins for error, and it seems like she really wants to avoid that this time round. How she can do that, it feels like a very difficult puzzle to fix.
Things seem to be going from bad to worse for Rachel Reeves, don't they? The Chancellor receiving more bad news from the OBR with this reduction in bigger than expected.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Treasury's been expecting this for a while, but perhaps they hadn't been expecting a number quite that big. And you actually wonder how long this kind of downgrade has been priced in by Treasury officials, because we have seen
0.3 percentage points, isn't it?
Yeah, and previously it was thought that it might be 0.1 or 0.2. Over the last few days, we have seen some more stories coming out, perhaps showing a slightly more ambitious tax-raising agenda from the Chancellor than we had expected. We've seen talk about putting 1p, even 2p on income tax, which obviously comes with huge political risks for Labour, who promised that they wouldn't do that in their manifesto last year. So you wonder perhaps whether or not this has been kicking around in Whitehall for the last week or so, and that's why we've seen a bit of a change in tone from the Treasury on what's coming in the budget. Or perhaps on the other side, are we seeing a bit of pitch rolling and an attempt to convince people that things are going to be worse than they actually are, such that when the budget comes around next month, there's a rabbit out the hat and everyone feels a bit better about it. This is the sort of endless psychodrama of budget season. But, I mean, I certainly don't think we're going to be seeing a lot of handouts to the public in that budget. There's a very significant amount of money is going to have to be raised whichever way you cut it.
It's very unlikely there will be handouts, isn't it? The Eye also sticking to that theme, bigger tax hikes. Jessica.
I think, that this productivity downgrade has been one of these things that you have been hearing grumbling about for the last 6 months from Treasury people, where they say, it's unfair that it's coming now, just after a Labour government's got into power, when in fact the OBR could have made these changes towards the end of the Tory government's time in power. Then it probably would have taken away Jeremy Hunt's ability to make those £20 billion worth of tax cuts that he did right at the end, just before the general election. But no matter how much you grumble about it, they would have known that this downgrade was coming. And the downgrade is not really necessarily to do with the things that the Labour government itself has caused. So it might not be their fault, but it is their problem, and they do have to fix this big hole. And You can see also now why they might want to go for a much more ambitious budget, which might include breaking those manifesto pledges, because I think one of the, the psychodrama, as Tony refers to it, that she's constantly having these big holes to fill, and there's constantly this huge expectations around budget, this sort of crisis talk around budget. And if you can give yourself a bit more space, if you can, even by breaking a manifesto promise, then in the next few years of a Labour government, you've got more room to do what you want, and not constantly having to be in this crisis cycle. And I think that would probably be a good idea for Rachel Reeves to do that, but it will require a really big intervention now.
But the headroom from the last budget, that's been totally wiped out, hasn't it?
It has, and you can see the argument for increasing the headroom for Rachel Reeves, because one of the major problems that she's got is that the bond markets are not totally sure about this government. They're not convinced that lending to this government is a good idea. Putting a bit more headroom on the books and giving herself a bit more space in case there are unexpected market shocks the next year or so might look like a good idea. But of course, she does have to take that money out of day-to-day spending when she's setting the budget this year. So it might be a case of giving herself a bit more space, but taking a bit of a political hit now. But if that brings down the long-term cost of government borrowing over the next 12 months or so, she might be in a better position, as Jess says, next year to be making a more popular budget, which perhaps is going to make people want to vote for Labour at the next election.
It's going to hurt, isn't it? It just depends when. that's really the decision she has to take.
The idea is to not make it hurt repeatedly.
Let's move away from politics and the budget for now and talk about the royal family. Front page of the Telegraph. They've got a very apt photograph of the King scratching his head, and the headline, "Headache for the Palace as King heckled over Prince Andrew." And he recently giving up his titles or volunteering not to use them, but attention has turned to him being housed at Royal Lodge. And there was a heckler when the King was out today about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and what the King knew about it.
Yeah, well, it appears that this person who's heckled the King is a member of the anti-monarchy campaign group. But I think one of the interesting things that was shouted at the King today is should MPs be allowed to debate the royals in the House of Commons? And I think that's where the focus of this story is really going. At the moment, you've got a really difficult situation whereby Buckingham Palace doesn't hugely want to intervene any further while there are still behind-the-scenes negotiations going on with Prince Andrew and whether or not he's going to move out of Royal Lodge. Equally, the government doesn't want to make space to debate in government time this issue on the floor of the Commons because that creates an awkward constitutional question. And so you've got MPs trying to come up with all these different ways of bringing the debate to Parliament, and that is producing this kind of feeling that the issue is being suppressed, I suppose. And I think that's the frustration you saw in a pretty extraordinary clip of the King being heckled by one of his subjects on the street.
Jessica, inevitably this will end up in Parliament, won't it, now, at this stage?
It feels like that's the way the momentum is going, but it's a difficult way to see how that's going to happen. Number 10 have made it fairly clear that they're not going to give any government time for MPs to have a debate on this. If an MP is to sort of proactively raid it, or, say in Prime Minister's question times, that's likely to get shut down pretty quickly because of parliamentary convention. The way that it can be done is if there's something called a substantive motion. So if the parliamentary time is given, the government controls most of that time, so the government's not going to do that. It's very difficult to see the Tories giving up one of their opposition day debates, which is a small chunk of time that they can control. The Lib Dems have said that they are prepared to do it, but it comes around not very often, a Lib Dem opposition day debate, although they'll say that they'll do it when they get one. So it may take a bit of time for it to roll around, but I think that it will eventually get there.
It will get there. OK. For the moment, Jessica and Tony, thank you very much. We're going to take a break. Coming up, amongst the stories we'll be discussing is the Category 5 hurricane Melissa, which is barrelling towards Jamaica and set to cause significant damage. That's on the front of The Guardian. We'll be right back.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
These large waterways provided an excellent source of body disposal.
This is the Buriganga River, where victims who'd allegedly been shot dead were dumped.
Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
We're going to take you to the very heart of a criminal network, going undercover inside Southeast Asia's scam centres for the very first time.
We won't have any problems with police, it's okay. Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I'm inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
People that pod together, they have a little hive brain going on.
They've not had a good week.
I've had a good week. There's a teaser there, a teaser.
Oof. OK, nothing to see here. Drama over. Full stop. Anyway, we'll get to that. She will be mortified.
She's the first female chancellor. I popped upstairs, made myself a cheese sandwich, and now I'm with you.
Annalise has come dressed in the magenta of electoral dysfunction. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories.
This is insane.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
We call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, the Daily Telegraph's associate political editor, Tony Diver, and the Guardian's deputy political editor, Jessica Elgot. Let's go to your paper, actually, Jessica, front page, and we've got that image of Hurricane Melissa approaching Jamaica tonight due to hit the island this evening, the strongest hurricane to hit the island since records began.
I mean, the details of it are extraordinary when you read it, 175-mile-per-hour winds, and one of the things that is the most catastrophic about it is it's incredibly slow-moving. So as it goes over Jamaica, it will, linger there for quite a while, it seems. And hearing some of the Jamaican Prime Minister speaking this evening was just incredibly sobering. He was saying that there is no infrastructure on the island that he thinks has been built to withstand, no building at all has been built to withstand something like a Category 5 hurricane. So I think we've just, it must be absolutely terrifying, and we've no idea what the impact of it will be.
No, indeed. Mudslides, flash flooding, as you say, winds of over 160 miles per hour. Tony, that's real devastation heading towards Jamaica.
It is, and as the storm is getting closer, they're now saying that it's the strongest storm anywhere on the planet so far this year, which is a pretty extraordinary fact when you think about it. Part of that is to do with warmer seas, apparently, and so the effect of global warming means that these storms get worse and worse the warmer the seas are, and so you have to think that in years to come we see more and more of these storms every year, but this kind of severity of storm is going to become more and more common, and so places that don't have that kind of infrastructure are going to have to work out how to handle this kind of extreme weather event going forward.
Yeah, it does look relatively calm at the moment, the pictures that we're showing, but the rain setting in and people hunkering down to prepare. We wish them safety throughout the course of this deadly hurricane, Melissa. Let's have a look at the Telegraph and the China spy case. New lines that Jonathan Powell discussed the consequences of the China spy trial going ahead at a Whitehall meeting 2 days before the case collapsed. This is Sir Keir Starmer's National Security Advisor. Jessica, take us into this.
Yeah, this was the first time we've seen the Deputy National Security Advisor, Matthew Collins, and the Director of Public Prosecution, Stephen Parkinson, and the KC involved in the case, Tom Little. They were before MPs and peers at this Joint National Security Committee, and they, putting their sides of the story across effectively. So it was quite an extraordinary moment to see, there'd been so much briefing and counter-briefing from both sides over the course of the last few weeks, to hear them, essentially put their sides forward. And it comes down really to a matter of semantics, that Matthew Collins believed that what he was saying in his witness statements would be enough to allow the prosecution to go ahead. The Director of Public Prosecutions saying that it was made really clear that it wasn't enough for it to go ahead, and it ended up being a bit of a war of words, really. Some of the MPs and peers round the table saying they felt like the CPS was being too finicky, saying that they not have got other people to give evidence about China being a national security threat. Others saying, they didn't understand why Collins hadn't gone just that bit further in his explanation to allow the case to be successfully brought. I mean, I don't think it will ever find a resolution between these two sides, or anyone prepared to accept that it was their side's fault. But it's become, pretty unedifying, to say the least.
But certainly more details coming to the fore now, Tony.
Well, that's right. This has become an incredibly complicated story, and it involves lots of people that many members of the public won't have heard of. I mean, Jonathan Powell is probably the most famous name that we're hearing about today, and he's not exactly a household name. The National Security Advisor, that is, appointed directly by Keir Starmer last year. But this story, which was first written about in the Telegraph, is a very important one. It basically comes down to two men being accused of spying on MPs in Parliament, and then not ever going to trial. Now, of course, those two men deny those claims, but...
We must leave it there. Thank you very much, both.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.